Hey guys, Marvelous Joe at the top of the episode, just to let you know right away that there were some technical difficulties with this episode where you may hear some static pops occasionally when I'm speaking into my microphone. It's nothing too frequent or anything that I would call obtrusive or detrimental to your enjoyment of the episode. I just want to make sure that you know it's not your sound equipment. I had to pick up some recording equipment that's not the standard we've been using so that I could record from my house separately. It's nothing major. Hopefully most of you don't notice. And yeah. Damn this pandemic. On with the show. Hi, and welcome to the Dynamic Duel podcast, a weekly show where we review superhero films and debate the superiority between Marvel and DC by comparing their characters in stat-based battle simulations. I'm Marvelous Joe.
And I'm his twin brother, Johnny DC.
And in this episode, it's a duel episode, we're going to learn who would win in a fight between the JSA character, Dr. Mid-Nite, and the Avengers character, Falcon. Now, of course, we're going to find out who wins by taking each character's stats and running them through a probabilistic model known as a Monte Carlo simulation. And I think it's going to be a fun episode. I'm really looking forward to this one because I'm a huge fan of the character of the Falcon. I'm really surprised that we have not gotten him into a duel episode yet.
Yeah, I'm excited too. I love Dr. Mid-Nite. He's a pretty obscure DC character, and he hasn't been in the comics for quite some time. But I think this is going to be a good matchup.
Yeah, we'll get into it later on in this episode. Before we talk about the duel, we'll get into the latest comic book movie news from the past week, of which there was one news item. We're going to talk about how Wonder Woman has set a new release date due to the coronavirus.
Man, I am so tired of talking about the coronavirus. Can't wait for other news other than this. Someone needs to drop a trailer. Like, we need a Wonder Woman trailer soon.
Right. Yeah, that would be fantastic.
As always, our segment times are in our episode description, so feel free to skip around the episode and listen to whatever you want.
Yeah, and don't forget, guys, Jonathan and I currently have a contest going on right now where we're giving away the 4-part comic book miniseries JLA/Avengers to a lucky listener who goes onto social media and creates a post explaining why they enjoy listening to our podcast and tags us in that post. Jonathan and I are already listing out all of the entrants, and we're going to draw a random name among them from a hat on April 15th and send that person the comic books. So it's not too late to get an entry in. Be sure to take advantage of that.
Also, please don't forget to share, subscribe, rate, and review our podcast on whatever platform you happen to be listening to us on. It goes a long way in helping other people find our show. We want to give a quick shout out to some of our recent patrons, Jacob Bell, Adam Jones, and Av Mail. Thank you guys so much.
Yeah, we really appreciate it. Jonathan and I are currently working hard on a secret project to unveil to our patrons within the next few months or so here. So look forward to that. Check out patreon.com/dynamicduel. With that out of the way,
quick to the No Prize. So No Prize is an award that Marvel used to give out up until the 90s to fans. Our version, the Dynamic Duel No Prize, is a digital award that we post on social media that I personally draw for those who we feel gave the best answer to our question of the week.
Last week's question was, what is one other podcast that you're listening to right now to help pass the time during your self-quarantine? And I have to say, we got a lot of great answers. Our listeners have amazing tastes in podcasts.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
It was almost impossible to choose a winner from among this criteria, but in the end, I just chose the podcast that I would most want to listen to. But before we announce the winners of this week's No Prize, let's go into our honorable mentions. First honorable mention goes to Harrison Fox, who gave the suggestion of Wizard and the Bruiser, which is a podcast that details the histories of different fandoms, and it sounds super interesting.
Tim Brown gave the answer of the Marvel Cinematic Universe podcast, which he says is pretty fun. And I don't know.
It sounds super fun. I'm a huge fan of the MCU, and the fact that it just focuses on the Marvel Cinematic Universe probably means that it's better than this podcast.
No way, dude. The DC stuff in our podcast elevates the Marvel material. No, I'm sure the podcast is great. Tim Brown has great taste.
Our next honorable mention goes to Calvin John Delamerced, who suggested the podcast Geek History Lesson, which is another fandom history podcast. He says they're great for people who are just getting into the world of comics.
Nice. Bo Bermudez said that he's listening to Mindscape, which is a science-based podcast.
Yeah, it's a podcast for science enthusiasts, and I'm definitely one of those, so I will be checking out this podcast for sure.
Ken Johnson gave the answer of Fat Man Beyond, which used to be called Fat Man on Batman, which is Kevin Smith's comic podcast. I've listened to that, and that's great. I love that one.
Yeah, Kevin Smith's always great. CJ Kraft gave the answer of Retronauts, which is a gaming history podcast where they talk about old school games and how they've been remembered over time. So if you're a gamer, definitely check that one out.
John Spees, the host of the Blast from Our Past podcast, said that he's listening to the ongoing history of new music with Alan Cross, and that goes into music history and different rock genres.
Yeah, apparently the host is really engaging. Jonathan Hazelton gave the answer of DC on Screen, which, I mean, I don't know about that one.
I do. I've seen that podcast pop up a few times in my recommendations. I haven't checked it out yet. Honestly, I don't check out too many comic podcasts because I don't want to be like influenced by what they say since we have our own comic podcast. Yeah. But yeah, I've seen that one before. Joel Seagrave gave the answer of The Evolution of Horror, which delves into the horror film genre.
Yeah, they talk about a different horror film genre each episode, like slasher films, ghost films, folk horror, zombie films, according to Joel. And they also talk about horror films that have just been released to theaters. That one sounds like a lot of fun. Miggy Madangian suggested the podcast Variant, the podcast, which delves into comics and nerd stuff. And apparently they have a pretty big YouTube channel and are very informative.
Yeah, this is another one that pops up in a few of my feeds from time to time. Gavamai says that he's listening to the Throwback podcast with Dan Hansis. And he says it's nostalgia-based.
Yeah, similar to the Blast from Our Past podcast. Joshua Smith gets honorable mention for his answer of Rogue Theory, a New Rockstars podcast. And that's a fairly interesting concept. They go into nerd theories about film and TV and comics, fan theories. It sounds like a lot of fun.
And finally, Noah Smucker gets honorable mention for his answer of Holy Batcast, which is a Batman-focused podcast that focuses on news, films, and comics.
But the winners of this week's No Prize are Adam Spees and Jace Crump. Jonathan and I each selected one winner. I chose Jace Crump because his answer of the Stuff You Should Know podcast really compelled me. It's a learning podcast where they talk about a different subject each week, and that's something that I could totally get into. So I am absolutely going to check this one out during this quarantine.
And I gave the award to Adam Spees for his answer of Trivial Warfare, because I'm a huge trivia fan. I'm not that good at it, but I love doing like trivia pub stuff, and having a podcast dedicated to that sounds like good times.
Yeah, and we don't want to steal any of Adam or John Spee's thunder, but in regards to that topic of trivia, look forward to one of their upcoming podcasts that they have in the works. It's going to be amazing. So yeah, congrats again to Adam Spees and Jace Crump. You guys win this week's No Prize. If you, the listener, want to win your own No Prize, go ahead and stay tuned to later on this episode when we ask another question of the week. Now that that's done,
on to the news. All right, so last week we learned that the Wonder Woman 1984 theatrical release has been delayed to August because of coronavirus concerns. Now, what's cool about this, I mean, it's not cool because it's getting delayed, but what's cool is that it actually has a new release date of August 14th, as compared to something like Black Widow, which is currently postponed indefinitely.
Yeah, same thing with New Mutants. We still don't know what the fate of those two films is going to be, and I can't sleep at night because of that. It keeps me up just wondering what Marvel is going to do. Yeah, you're really lucky that Wonder Woman was able to secure a release date so close to its original date because, you know, Wonder Woman has been delayed a couple of times. I think just once, right?
This is the second delay, yeah.
But yeah, it's been forever since they filmed it, so it would be a shame if you had to go through like another long delay. That being said, I wonder if August 14th is too soon. Like, will we be out of this pandemic by that point?
It is a bold move because no one really knows what's going to happen, right?
Right.
That said, worst case scenario, they just push it again. If things are back to normal by then, at least we have that release date.
Right.
And I don't think it's going up against too many other things. This took the original release date for the James Wan film Malignant. I don't know anything about that film.
Yeah, I've never heard of it.
But Malignant, In the Heights, and Scoob have all been postponed indefinitely. Wonder Woman 1984 is the only Warner Brothers film from this news that has a new release date. And I'm glad we're still getting it in theaters. Honestly, I would hate if it went straight to streaming.
When is the release date for HBO Max again? It's coming up soon, I think.
Yeah, it was supposed to be in May, but they're saying that they may delay it because there's so many platforms now offering like free content, like Amazon Prime. But I don't think HBO Max wants to do that. So I think they're hopefully fine delaying it. I'm not fine, but they might be.
We'll see what happens.
There's actually a huge rumor, we haven't really talked about this, that Zack Snyder is planning on releasing the Snyder Cut with the HBO Max launch.
Oh my God, that would be amazing.
Yeah, it would be. Apparently he wants to film like 2 extra scenes for it, and then it's finished. We'll see.
Fascinating. Okay, well, we'll see what happens with that. Really glad that you got that release date, so we'll have at least that movie to review this summer. Well, the coronavirus is still dominating the news cycle, so we don't have any other news, but on the subject of the pandemic, that brings us to our question of the week.
Invent a superhero who could beat this coronavirus. What's their name and what's their power?
Right, yeah, we have more of like a creative writing type assignment this week for the question of the week. Just keep it brief, guys. We just basically want you to come up with a superhero that would be super helpful in these times, what their powers would be, and what their name would be. Post your answer to our Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, or email us at dynamicduelpodcast@gmail.com. We'll pick our favorite answer and draw that person a Dynamic Duel No prize that we'll post to social media. But again, that does it for all the news for this week, so let's go ahead and get into our main event for this episode, where we find out who would win in a fight between Dr. Mid-Nite and Falcon. All right, Dr. Mid-Nite versus Falcon. We have 2 superheroes here who have incredible eyesight. They both have pet birds, I think, which was the main impetus for this particular duel, because Dr. Mid-Nite has a pet great horned owl, and Falcon, of course, has a pet peregrine falcon, and the pets both join their respective heroes in battle. So we thought that would be a cool little through line between these 2 characters.
Does the Falcon have good eyesight? I didn't know that. I guess he did in the Ant-Man movie.
Yeah, he has great eyesight. Not only can he see through the eyes of his falcon, he also has special goggles that grant him vision on other wavelengths in the electromagnetic spectrum. So,
what?
Yeah.
Well, yeah, this is a terrific matchup then.
Yeah, I also figured that they're pretty equal in terms of power levels. So this is going to be a fun matchup. We'll see who wins. Now, the way we determine a winner between these 2 characters is through statistics. We take each character's statistics and run them through a probabilistic model known as a Monte Carlo simulation. Now, we do that 1,000 times, which gives us 1,000 results of battles, and therefore a percentage of wins for each character.
Right, and the character who gets the higher percentage of wins, we declare the winner. Now, of course, no character ever wins 100% of the time. There's always some way for one character to defeat another, based on how the model randomizes the stats on a normal distribution, which is a bell curve. So that accounts for all of the variables you'll find in battle.
Right, and of course we get the stats from the official Marvel Power Rankings grid, and among that criteria we extrapolate the DC character stats. We do add a few additional stats beyond the Marvel Power Rankings, things such as range and other stats that we think are pertinent to the battle and would make for a more robust simulation. So it's all scientific because we needed an objective approach to determine who would win between these characters. We didn't want any bias involved because Jonathan and I are both heavily biased.
Yeah, and we've been having these debates all our lives, so we needed some way to solve these arguments.
Yeah, so no bias means we don't consider fan votes. We also don't consider like what we determine to be uncharacteristic for each character. We all know that they've done things in the comics that are probably an outlier, which is represented in the model, but does not represent the character's like base statistics.
Right, it's not the mean.
Exactly.
Now, before we run the simulations, we like to give a backstory on the characters, giving both their histories and a description of their abilities. I think I go first this time with Dr. Mid-Nite.
Sweet, let's hear it.
So the mantle of Dr. Mid-Nite has been carried by 3 separate individuals in DC Comics history. The original Dr. Mid-Nite, who first appeared in 1941, was Dr. Charles McNider, a surgeon. One night, a desperate police officer came to his home asking for help saving a dying gunshot victim who would be testifying as a mob witness in court the next morning. As Dr. McNider attempted to remove the bullet, a mobster lobbed a grenade into the victim's home, killing everyone except for Dr. McNider, who was blinded in the explosion. With his medical career ruined, Dr. McNider attempted a second career in journalism to expose and fight against organized crime until an owl crashed through his study window one night. Instinctively removing his bandages, Dr. McNider realized he was naturally able to see in the dark, though still unable to see in light. To take advantage of his newfound ability, Dr. McNider developed blackout bombs, infrared goggles to see during the day, and other tools to become the gadgeteering hero of the night, Dr. Mid-Nite, comics' first physically disabled superhero.
Oh, so he was a blind hero before Daredevil came out.
Oh yeah, long before. He's Golden Age.
Okay.
So aided by the owl he had adopted, whom he named Hootie, Dr. Mid-Nite became an early member of both the All-Star Squadron and the Justice Society of America. During his adventures in Europe, Dr. Mid-Nite saved a pregnant woman from being attacked by vagrants. She went into labor during the incident, and Dr. Mid-Nite delivered her baby, a boy, whom she later named Peter. Now, Peter Cross would grow up to be a brilliant surgeon in his own right, traveling to America to attend Harvard and study under Dr. Charles McNider, who had retired from superheroics when the Justice Society disbanded and had taken up a medical practice. During the Crisis on Infinite Earths event, another one of Dr. McNider's students, Dr. Beth Chappell, helped treat an injured Jade, the superhero daughter of Alan Scott, the original Green Lantern, and a colleague of Dr. Mid-Nite in the JSA. In the chaos of the event, an oxygen explosion blinded Dr. Chappell, though she was saved by Rick Tyler, whom you can learn more about in our Hourman vs. Bishop episode. Donning goggles that allowed her to see, Dr. Chappell served a brief superhero career as Dr. McNider's successor, the second Dr. Mid-Nite, a member of Infinity Inc. alongside Rick and Jade. Later, after Infinity Inc. disbanded, Dr. Chappell died in a battle against Eclipso. Dr. McNider died a year later during the Zero Hour event while battling the villain Extant, who you can learn more about in our Hawk and Dove vs. North Star and Aurora episode. Dr. McNider's other protege, Dr. Peter Cross, had by this time graduated from Harvard at age 19 and became an accomplished surgeon. After being ostracized from the medical community after a very public battle with the insurance industry when his mother died from diluted medication, Dr. Cross moved to Portsmouth City and opened up a free clinic. Every night, he traveled to the city slums to help its elderly and impoverished citizens, garnering him the nickname the Mid-Nite Doctor. He eventually came afoul of a local pharmaceutical company, Prada Industries, after he discovered a new steroid narcotic on the street called A39 that was derived from the venom serum used by Bane. You can learn more about that in our Bane vs. Iron Fist episode. Prada Industries was run by a crime organization out of Gotham City known as the Terrible Trio, who secretly drugged Dr. Cross with A39 before he could connect them to the narcotic. The effects of the drug hit Dr. Cross as he drove home and he lost control of his car, crashing into and killing a young woman named Catherine Blythe. He awoke in the hospital, blinded by the accident, with his medical license revoked. Depressed, Dr. Cross went for a walk that night, only to be attacked by an owl who tore off his bandages. Like his mentor, Dr. Charles McNider, Dr. Cross found that he was able to see in the dark, deducing that the experimental A39 unlocked a latent metagene in his body. Inspired by Dr. McNider, and with the help of the Portsmouth City community, Dr. Cross was able to bring the Terrible Trio to justice as the newest Dr. Mid-Nite. Dr. Cross eventually joined the newly reformed JSA, where over time he became the world's most prominent metahuman physician, often called upon to perform routine checkups, perform autopsies, or surgically remove alien cybernetic viruses, such as from Barbara Gordon, as mentioned in our Batgirl vs. Hawkeye episode. When the JSA encountered Gog, an old god survivor of the Third World, Dr. Cross's eyesight was restored, though he quickly realized this took away most of his advantages as a superhero. When the JSA was forced to kill the old god, his miraculous gifts, including Dr. Cross's eyesight, were taken away. In post-Flashpoint continuity, Dr. Beth Chappell was seen on Earth 2 as that Earth's Dr. Mid-Nite before that dimension was destroyed by Darkseid. At the end of the Doomsday Clock event that joined DC and Watchmen universe continuities, Dr. Manhattan, who you can learn more about in our Dr. Manhattan vs. Molecule Man episode, brought back members of the JSA and Legion of Superheroes, including Dr. Chappell as Dr. Mid-Nite, though we have yet to see her new adventures as the character. In this battle, I'll be using the Dr. Peter Cross version of the character, primarily because of his pet owl, named Charlie after his mentor Dr. Charles McNider. Charlie wears a camera that can feed into Dr. Mid-Nite's goggles and allows him to see from other vantage points.
Oh.
Dr. Mid-Nite naturally sees in infrared, though he is capable of viewing the entire electromagnetic spectrum as well as sonic wavelengths, though he needs his goggles to focus on specific wavelengths such as ultraviolet or ultrasonic. His signature weapon is a blackout bomb, which emits a dense black haze that blocks the visible spectrum of light. He also wields a variety of gadgets, including grappling hooks, flashbangs, medical equipment, and crescent-shaped throwing darts, occasionally laced with sedatives, truth serums, or other chemical compounds. He has a genius-level intellect, primarily when it comes to biology, which he uses to his advantage in combat, often striking pressure points to disable foes with his expert knowledge of several forms of combat. His enhanced eyesight, which allows him to see in telescopic or microscopic detail, also allows him to perceive events faster than a normal human. He has enhanced reflexes and hand-eye coordination, and is a parkour master. And that's Dr. Mid-Nite.
I have a question. How is his kit of medical supplies going to help him in this battle?
Oh, dude, scalpels are sharp. Okay?
Does he, throw scalpels on the battlefield?
No, but I've seen him use one as, a weapon.
Okay, interesting. Oh, that's pretty deadly.
Yeah.
Very interesting character. I like how his superpower is, he can see in the dark, but other people can't, so he just makes dark and then beats the shit out of them. It's a different take on how you can use blindness that Daredevil doesn't often employ. Although he has sometimes.
Yeah, just make the room dark.
Exactly. So let me go ahead and get into the history of Falcon. Now, Samuel Wilson was born and raised in Harlem, New York, to a prominent local minister, Paul Wilson, and his wife, Darlene. Sam had a happy childhood with an innate amazement of birds and their ability to fly. He studied birds and gleefully raised the largest pigeon coop in his neighborhood. Those happy days came to an end, however, when he was 9 years old and his father was killed trying to break up a gang fight. This caused Sam to delve heavily in his community in his teens as a volunteer. However, a few years later, his mother was shot a few blocks from their home by a mugger who was upset that she didn't have enough money to steal.
Yeah.
The grief over these tragic events caused the normally idyllic Sam to, quote, snap mentally, and he moved to Los Angeles, becoming a professional criminal with the nickname Snap Wilson.
I know.
On his way back from a drug deal in Rio de Janeiro, his plane crashed, and Sam found himself marooned on an island. It was there that he encountered and trained a Falcon to help him survive, naming it Red Wing. Unfortunately for Sam, Captain America's adversary, the Red Skull, was also on the island, and used the reality-altering powers of the Cosmic Cube to rewrite Sam's past as a criminal into one where he remained a community leader and became a social worker. The Skull also gave Sam a telepathic bond with Red Wing and all birds as a means to create an ally for Captain America that he could use and manipulate. As orchestrated, Sam and Captain America met and befriended each other on the island, with Cap training Sam to help him fight and defeat the Red Skull and his henchmen. Cap gave Sam the superhero codename Falcon, and though the Skull attempted to destroy their friendship with the truth about Sam's criminal past, Cap and Sam remained friends, teaming up frequently back home in New York.
Well, that plan really backfired on the Red Skull, didn't it? That was dumb.
What an idiot. Sam went back to helping his community, working as a social worker when he wasn't assisting Captain America in fighting criminals like Baron Zemo and the Serpent Society. In one of his early adventures, Sam fought alongside Black Panther, who was impressed by Sam's fortitude and moral resolve. Using Wakandan technology, he fashioned a jet-powered flying harness complete with wings for Sam, allowing him to take to the skies just like his pet Falcon. With his new flying ability, he joined the International Intelligence and Peacekeeping Agency known as SHIELD, and became the head of one of their superpowered strike teams. Sam was later recruited to the Avengers when the team's governmental liaison was influencing roster changes, and you can learn more about this in our Justice League vs. Avengers Duel episode. But Sam quit when he learned that he was brought in solely as a means to fill a mandated racial quota, given that he was one of the few active black superheroes in America at the time. He didn't want to be the, quote, token Avenger. After working alongside Captain America for a time, he rejoined the Avengers of his own accord and was given an updated flying harness with hard light holographic wings and a magnetic drive for thrust. He was instrumental in preventing the Red Skull from infiltrating the team and launching a biological weapon on America. Eventually, the Avengers disassembled after an attack on the team by the Scarlet Witch, who was driven insane by the apparent loss of her children and the manipulations of Doctor Doom, which you can learn more about in our Zatanna vs. Scarlet Witch episode. She manipulated Sam's mind to revert to his gangster Snap persona, and his harsher, unrelenting attitude put a strain on his and Captain America's partnership. They eventually stopped working together, but Sam's mental state restabilized when he saw Cap take a bullet meant for him. The pair teamed up to track down an assassin called the Winter Soldier, who turned out to be Captain America's World War II sidekick, Bucky Barnes, believed to be killed by Baron Zemo during the war, but in reality brainwashed and placed into suspended animation by the Soviets. Sam sided with Captain America in the superhero Civil War when Earth's heroes chose sides for or against the Superhuman Registration Act, which would force all US crime fighters to register with the government and take orders as official operatives. When Captain America's side lost and Cap was apparently assassinated, which you can learn more about in our Commander Steel vs. Captain America episode, Sam set out to find the Winter Soldier and help rehabilitate him. Bucky became the new Captain America, and he and Sam teamed up to defeat the Red Skull. When Steve Rogers came back and reclaimed the mantle of Captain America, he and Sam rejoined the Avengers. In a battle against the villain Ron Shen, Cap's super soldier serum was drained from his body, and Steve was aged into his chronologically 90-year-old self. He appointed Sam as his official replacement for the mantle of Captain America and gave him his shield. As the new Captain America, Sam fought the Red Skull's daughter, named Sin, and learned that the entire Snap persona of his was a complete stereotype-based fabrication by the Red Skull when he initially gave Sam his powers on the South American island all those years ago.
Interesting.
In reality, Sam had always been a dedicated community leader and social worker, having crashed on the island not during a drug deal, but during a humanitarian assignment. After defeating Sin, Sam fought Baron Zemo, who attempted to use an Inhuman's blood to sterilize the Earth's population. The fight resulted in Redwing being bitten by a vampire, which didn't kill the bird like it would a human, but rather made him faster, stronger, and gave him a healing factor.
What?
Kind of like Bird Blade. I know, it's ridiculous.
Oh my gosh.
But after that, Sam rescued a teenager named Joaquin Torres, who had been kidnapped by a hate group, experimented on, and transformed into a Falcon-human hybrid. Sam took Joaquin on as his sidekick, making him the new Falcon whom he could communicate with telepathically. Sam was later attacked by the hero US Agent in an attempt to get him to relinquish the Captain America shield and title. It was a move orchestrated by Steve Rogers, who was reverted back to his younger self through a cosmic cube and had his history rewritten to be a sleeper agent for Hydra this whole time. Sam helped lead the underground resistance to stop Hydra Cap, and along with the Winter Soldier, they were able to bring back the original Steve Rogers using a fragment of the cube they had collected. To help redeem Steve's name after the defeat of his evil doppelganger, Sam gave his friend back his shield and the title of Captain America. Since then, Sam has gone back to his Falcon costume and codename with an updated vibranium suit.
Vibranium, wow.
Yeah, he got an upgrade through Black Panther. Now, powers-wise, Falcon's natural ability is his telepathic link with his pet falcon, Redwing, which he can extend to other birds in his vicinity. Through this link, he can control Redwing and see through his eyes. Now, I don't know if you know this, but a falcon can see acutely from a distance of nearly 2 miles.
Yeah, Dr. Mid-Nite can see farther than that.
Okay, whatever. Also, falcons like Redwing can see in the ultraviolet spectrum, meaning that Sam can as well when using his telepathic link. In addition, Falcon's goggles let him see infrared heat signatures, provide magnification, and a full 360-degree field of vision. His suit gives him the ability to fly at speeds over 200 miles per hour. It has been updated by Black Panther with vibranium wings, which not only give Falcon his lift, but can also be used to shield himself and slice into almost anything with their sharpness. The suit itself has a vibranium microweave that protects Falcon from gunfire and comes equipped with a talon-like grappling unit that he can shoot out to ensnare enemies or hook objects from above. In addition to his tech, Falcon is a formidable martial artist trained by Captain America, an expert-level combatant on both ground and in air. And that's the Falcon.
So quick question. Who do you think would win in a fight between a bighorned owl and a peregrine falcon?
Falcon, obviously. They are the fastest birds of prey out there. I've seen National Geographic videos where these guys take on, like, full-grown pelicans.
But a pelican is no great horned owl. Like, those things are monsters. Like, I'm pretty sure they kill falcons.
Baby falcons, maybe. They are bigger than falcons, but they're not faster.
Okay, at the end of this, we're going to have to run a second simulation where we put in stats for a peregrine falcon and a great horned owl.
Well, mind you that Red Wing's stats will be greater than a normal Falcon because he's, part vampire.
That's so dumb.
It is dumb, but I think they just wanted to give the bird a healing factor and make him a little bit stronger and faster than, your average bird.
And probably a longer lifespan.
Yeah. So now that we've gone into the histories and abilities of each character, what we do now is Jonathan and I improvise a scenario in which we detail how we think a fight between these two characters would actually play out beat for beat. One of the 1,000 simulations, as it were.
Right, the results aren't based on this match, they're based on the simulation. We just like to imagine how one of those matches will go.
Yeah, we don't set any rules for the scenario, save for the fact that the characters don't know anything about each other prior to the fight. They know that the other one is a threat that needs to be put down, but they don't know anything else. We also say that they start off about 50 meters apart from each other on a neutral battlefield, basically an environment that has no bearing on the battle itself.
Right, because we don't take stats for the environment, and certain characters have advantages in some environments and others don't. So we say that they have to win on their own merits.
Exactly. For example, say this fight took place in a narrow tunnel, that would give Falcon a disadvantage because he wouldn't be able to use the full extent of his abilities. So no environment, basically.
Right.
So let's go ahead and get into it. These characters meet 50 meters apart on the battlefield. Who goes first?
Now, I'm probably going to say that Falcon will start this because Dr. Mid-Nite, especially Dr. Peter Cross, has always been more of a physician than a superhero. So Falcon probably will take the lead on this one.
Yeah, plus he's faster, so I think that Falcon's going to see Dr. Mid-Nite and fly straight up into the air to give himself the aerial advantage and to kind of scout the field a little bit. He has Red Wing fly around, letting him get a good view of what's going on.
Okay, and Charlie flies off too, doing the same thing.
Charlie is the owl, right?
Yes, so they're both just kind of scouting each other. Dr. Mid-Nite, of course, is analyzing everything about the Falcon from the ground. He knows that Falcon's suit is made up of a non-vibrational metal. And you can also probably see that Falcon's propulsion unit is powered by magnetism.
Yeah, it's a magnetic drive that provides the thrust for Falcon's flight harness. You're right. So the question is, what is he going to do with that information, besides know that he's totally screwed?
Oh, he's coming up with ideas, don't you worry.
Well, while Dr. Mid-Nite is coming up with ideas, Falcon is taking action. And he sees this rival bird in the air, and he commands Red Wing to go just dive bomb the owl, making it fall down to the ground.
Okay, well, there's no way for Dr. Mid-Nite to, warn his owl. They don't have a telepathic link. The owl is trained, but...
Right.
The great thing about Dr. Mid-Nite's vision, though, is that he's really good at, analyzing trajectories, okay? So he sees that his owl is in danger. He fires a perfect grapple shot that plucks Red Wing out of the air before Red Wing can reach Charlie and pulls it towards him.
Okay, so he snatches Red Wing out of the air?
Right.
Interesting.
So now Dr. Mid-Nite has Red Wing, and he punctures his skin with a sedative. So Red Wing is out.
What? Okay, well, I mean, he's part vampire, so I don't think he'll be out for too long. He does have a healing factor that can accommodate poisons like this. So, yeah, he's out of the match now, but he won't be for very long.
Awesome.
I do have to commend Dr. Mid-Nite, though, for being gentle with the bird.
Well, he loves birds.
So Falcon saw what Dr. Mid-Nite did to Red Wing, though, and he's pissed because he's wondering why Red Wing suddenly went, lights out. So he's just going to dive bomb Dr. Mid-Nite at 200 miles per hour from where he is. So Falcon just swoops down to plow into Dr. Mid-Nite.
Okay, but Dr. Mid-Nite sees this coming, okay? So just as Falcon is about to reach him, Dr. Mid-Nite throws down a blackout bomb and dives out of the way, causing the Falcon to crash into the ground, really hard, because he can't see.
Oh, because the entire area is dark now?
Right.
Okay, so Falcon crashes into the ground at a pretty fast speed, so he's pretty injured by that crash. Everything's dark around him. He's wondering what's going on.
And that's when he gets a crescent dart stuck in his arm.
Ouch. Okay, so he switches vision modes on his goggles to switch to infrared vision so he can see heat signatures. And he looks down and sees that there's a blade sticking out of his arm. So he rips that out, and he can see that Dr. Mid-Nite threw it. And honestly, he's probably a little freaked out that Dr. Mid-Nite can just create darkness like that.
Right.
But being no stranger to seeing in darkness, and being really adept at throwing projectiles from his experience with Captain America's shield, Falcon hurls the crescent dart right back at Dr. Mid-Nite.
And Dr. Mid-Nite just catches it and puts it back into his utility belt.
Yeah, it catches it and it slices into his hand.
No, because of his vision, he has expert reflexes. The way he perceives things moving, the way he perceives things in general, is different than you and I. So he knew exactly when it was going to reach him, and he just plucks it out of the air.
Okay, well, that doesn't really matter because Falcon followed up his toss of the moon dart with a full-on blitz. So he goes from like 0 to 50, flying straight toward Dr. Mid-Nite, and a blackout bomb is not going to help him this time because, you know, the area is already dark. And he just launches into Dr. Mid-Nite, tackling him down to the ground, pinning him, and starts punching him in the face.
Okay, so as they're like wrestling on the ground, though, that's when Charlie swoops in silently, stealthily, and rips off Falcon's goggles. So now he can't see in the dark anymore.
Okay, that sucks. Falcon is now in complete darkness, but he still has Dr. Mid-Nite pinned to the ground, and he still has his arm blades. So he's going to give Dr. Mid-Nite a good swipe and just slash him right across his chest.
Jeez! Okay, that's when Dr. Mid-Nite uses like this expert judo move to like flip Falcon off of and away from him. And he quickly pulls out this like spray adhesive from his utility belt and he sprays it across the wound on his chest to prevent it from like bleeding out.
Smart man, smart man. And while Dr. Mid-Nite is healing, guess what? Falcon can see in the dark again because he commanded Charlie, the owl, to bring back his goggles.
What?
Yeah, he took control of Charlie. Yep, that's what he did.
Dr. Mid-Nite's like, what the fuck, Charlie?
Then Falcon commands Charlie to attack his owner.
No!
So Charlie goes over and he does the same thing that he did to Falcon, where he rips off Dr. Mid-Nite's goggles. So now Dr. Mid-Nite's getting flooded with all this information from every wavelength on the electromagnetic spectrum, right? And so he's disoriented.
No, well, I mean, naturally he just sees infrared. He could see the entire electromagnetic spectrum with the goggles because it helps him fine-tune his sight to different wavelengths. But basically right now he's just seeing infrared.
Gotcha. Interesting.
By this point, Dr. Mid-Nite definitely knows that Falcon can see in the dark and the blackout bombs are kind of useless. So what he does is he pulls out a flashbang from his belt, closes his eyes, and then sets it off, blinding Falcon.
Do flashbangs affect infrared vision? I assume they would. They probably show up as like white hot, right?
Yeah, but luckily for Dr. Mid-Nite, he has a spare set of goggles tucked away in his utility belt. This guy has pockets everywhere.
Whatever. Okay.
So he puts on the new goggles and charges Falcon, who's blinded, and does like a flying kick to his chest, knocking him to the ground. And while Falcon is disoriented, Dr. Mid-Nite flips him over onto his stomach, and then he starts dissecting Falcon's flight harness using a UV laser like scalpel, because he can see all the workings of the harness with his vision.
Oh, it's like a lightsaber scalpel?
It's more like a ray gun, like a mini like little laser.
Okay, well guess what? That laser scalpel gets yanked out of Dr. Mid-Nite's hands by Charlie the Owl, who is still under Falcon's control.
No!
And
Why,
Falcon
Charlie?
has
Why?
Charlie turn around and use that laser scalpel and fire it right at Dr. Mid-Nite, severing his utility belt right off his body.
How does he pull the trigger?
With his talons, he just squeezes it.
Oh my gosh.
So Dr. Mid-Nite, now without his utility belt, gets kicked away by the Falcon.
Oh, you think that just because Dr. Mid-Nite doesn't have his utility belt that he's without tools? He basically has like an entire like med lab in his gauntlets and like greaves.
Okay, so right after Dr. Mid-Nite gets kicked away, Falcon jumps up to his feet and he does like this flying, spinning kick, and he just connects with Dr. Mid-Nite like right in the head.
Yeah, except Dr. Mid-Nite blocks the kick and slashes Falcon's Achilles tendon with a scalpel.
Oh shit!
He's performing surgery.
Oh my god, that is Jesus. Okay, so Falcon is in a lot of pain.
He can't walk, he can't fly. He's pretty much done for.
Except Redwing has now awoken from his sedative and has taken to the air, and Falcon has him swoop down at over 200 miles per hour like a bullet and just rip at Dr. Mid-Nite's jugular. So now he's bleeding out. Holy shit, this got violent.
Okay, well, Dr. Mid-Nite sticks like fingers into his neck to stop the bleeding, and that's when he just starts throwing scalpels at Falcon, who's bleeding on the ground, and they all just stick into him.
Okay, so Falcon launches out his Talon grappling hook, which ensnares Dr. Mid-Nite so that he stops throwing the scalpels, and then Charlie comes in, yanks off Dr. Mid-Nite's goggles, and like pecks his eyes out.
Oh my gosh, what is this?
So like Falcon is there bleeding from the scalpels, and Dr. Mid-Nite is there bleeding from like the jugular and from his eyes.
That's probably like a good place to end this. This is getting like pretty horrifying.
It is. What horror movie have we concocted?
Exactly.
But, all right, let's go ahead and stop it there. We'll find out who the winner of this match is when we run the statistics on these characters. We'll be right back. All right, that was a pretty gruesome fight, but if you think about, the abilities that the characters have on hand between, vibranium metal wings and scalpels, birds with talons and sharp beaks and things like that, really, I don't know how else this could have gone.
I kind of figured it would get kind of bloody because Dr. Mid-Nite is a surgeon and he has so many bladed weapons, so I'm not surprised.
Yeah, but I still think it was an interesting scenario to go over. Regarding the stats, these characters weren't too even on quite a few of these categories.
Yeah, we said that Falcon was definitely faster. He's a slightly better fighter.
Whereas Dr. Mid-Nite, we said, is a little bit more evasive due to the nature of his blackout bombs. And he's a little bit smarter in terms of his strategic approach, not only being a brilliant scientist, but also having access to so much analytical data through his goggles.
Right, when it came to damage level, Falcon had the edge on Dr. Mid-Nite, considering that Dr. Mid-Nite really doesn't have too much firepower. He relies a lot on stealth.
Yeah, that's his whole thing. He basically incapacitates the enemy long enough to take him out with his skill. Whereas Falcon has those two big-ass metal blades on his arms.
Yeah, you can't quite compare them to a tiny crescent dart.
We said that they both had comparable range, considering the fact that they both have items that they can hurl, and they both have trained birds that can attack on command. And in terms of durability, we said that they were about comparable. Even though Falcon has the more durable vibranium suit, we think that Dr. Mid-Nite is able to compensate for that with his own Kevlar suit combined with his healing devices. He is, after all, the JSA's resident doctor and is able to come back from most things with his medical kit.
Right, like when Black Canary gets her arm broken in battle, he'll patch her up pretty quick and send her back in fairly quickly.
Considering all that, this is a pretty interesting matchup. I'm really excited to see who wins. As far as our Instagram poll goes, it looks like 62% of you listeners thought that Falcon would come out victorious.
And I'm assuming most of our pollsters didn't even know who Dr. Mid-Nite was, because he's a pretty obscure character who hasn't been around for almost a decade now.
Yeah, because the JSA haven't really been in the comics since the New 52.
Exactly.
But he is a really cool character if you could go back into those early 2000s comics.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. Honestly, if I could be a superhero, I would not mind being Dr. Mid-Nite at all. He's just kind of like a stealthy ninja badass.
Yeah. I do have to say, though, that in this case, I agree with our Instagram pollsters. I think that Falcon is going to come out on top on this one.
Oh, you think so, huh?
Yeah, primarily because he's just so much faster, I think, and he has the aerial advantage.
He did have some advantages, but is that enough to secure him the win? The answer is yes. Unfortunately for me, Falcon wins an even 51% of the time. He
51?
won 510 out of the 1,000 matches, as compared to Dr. Mid-Nite, who won 490.
Something's wrong here. It should have been way more wins than that.
No, it's pretty much a coin toss. This was a really good match.
It was much closer than I honestly thought it was going to be. I'm actually surprised. Good for Dr. Mid-Nite.
Yeah, thanks.
Because I thought Falcon was going to win in the 600 range.
Really? No.
Yeah.
No.
Well, a win is still a win, I guess, right? That's right. I answered my own question. It is absolutely a win. Chalk this up in the Marvel column. So shout out to all my Marvel peeps. High five to all you guys.
And DC guys, give yourselves a pat on the back, because we didn't do too bad either.
No, the Marvel guys are giving the DC guys a big L on the forehead right now and laughing.
And the DC guys are giving a big middle finger to the Marvel guys.
That does it for this matchup, guys. Go ahead and let us know what you thought about it by reaching out to us on social media on Twitter, Facebook, or Instagram. You can find us on all three platforms by visiting our website, dynamicduel.com, where we have all the links there. You can also reach out to us via email at dynamicduelpodcast@gmail.com.
Also on our website, you can find a link to our merch store, which is on TeePublic, where you'll find a variety of t-shirts and cell phone cases and various other items, all with our no prize art on it. This week, I'll be drawing Dr. Mid-Nite. So look forward to seeing that in our shop soon. But you can also find on our website a link to our Patreon account, where we have additional bonus content.
Right, definitely check that out, guys, if you can.
In our next episode, we will be reviewing Captain America: The Winter Soldier.
And I can't wait. It's just one of my favorite Marvel movies of all time. Really looking forward to talking about that. I think it's a lot of our listeners' favorite as well. So it's going to be fun. Definitely tune in next week. Please hit subscribe if you haven't already to get notified when a new episode comes out. Please rate us or review us on whatever platform you're listening to us on if you can.
And share us with your friends and family.
Yeah. We want to give a big thanks to our executive producers, John Spees and Bodo Winter. And that does it for this episode. We'll talk to you guys next week.
Up, and away.
True believers.